Right. Welcome to Under the Rug at Work, where we shine light on things that are normally swept under the rug. Today, I'm chatting with Jane Phipps about the cost of narcissistic leadership, a topic that I think everyone wants to dive into. Now, Jane is a consultant, former COO, and the author of The Heart-Centered Leader. Jane, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Now, for people who might not have met you before, can you share a little bit about your background and what led you to write The Heart-Centered Leader?
I can. I wanted to write this book because I wanted to start opening the conversation about those things that are swept under the rug. Um, you know, narcissistic leadership, toxic leadership, it happens everywhere. And, a lot of people have been on the other end of it, and it's not often talked about.
Mm.
So that's one of the reasons. I
Yep.
also I also was brought up by a narcissistic parent,
Hmm.
and my father, and he died last year. So I felt like it was no time that I had more permission
Yeah.
to more agency to start talking about narcissism and what's brought me here. Although, there's still the narcissistic leaders out there that I'm still a little bit of fear of writing the book. But
Yep.
it started my journey of I want to get this on paper. I want
Mm.
to start talking about it. So
Yeah.
and a little bit about me. I was a single mum, became a
Mhm.
single mum at 20. I put myself through university, did a maths degree in a male-dominated environment,
Yep.
and then I joined the workforce, and I joined the workforce in a male-dominated environment. And that's when I learned the narcissistic parent. I didn't know I had a narcissistic parent at
Yeah.
that time, but then I certainly learned what it looked like in the workplace. I
Mhm.
had a bit of an awakening when I got to the workplace about
Mm.
yeah, toxic leadership, being an only female, dealing with eyes rolling at after because I had to leave to go and get uh, Lydia from daycare, from after school care, taking the occasional sick leave, being treated a little bit differently because I'm kind.
Mhm.
Softness is seen as weakness. And I learned all this
Mhm.
early on in my career, not really understanding toxicity and narcissism until I could label it later on.
Mm.
But I certainly started to learn what the patterns were, what I'd learned from childhood, early career, and the impact it was having on me. And
Mm.
then everything came together as a crescendo, and I went, I'm writing a book.
Yes. Um, and it's interesting you say that, right? You didn't realize you had a narcissistic father. And I do minimizing harmful behaviors training and talk about how we're all brought up in an environment that we think is normal. And then we come to the workplace and we have conflict with people because everyone's normal is so different. And sometimes normal's not okay in those things. So yeah, it's really great that you were able to see what it was, but also not so great in that you've experienced that type of abuse firsthand, not only from a family member, but also in the workplace. What kind of
Mm.
impact did that have on you personally and professionally?
Um, I learned from an earlier age how to read the room.
Mm.
What mood was I walking into? What emotions did I have to manage? I learned to make myself very small
Mm.
so that I was less of a target area. And that to me was normalized. I learned that very young. And so the impact it had on me is that's what I took into the workplace. It
Yep.
was natural for me as an ambitious female, I
Mm.
was ambitious. I wanted to be out there. I was proud of my maths degree and being a mathematician. I wanted to, but at the same time, I was in conflict because I needed to make myself small
Mm.
so I wasn't a target, but then I was one of very few females, so I was a target. So,
Yeah.
you live in this, and I'm sure lots of people do live in this ambiguity of wanting to push your ambition and your voice, but
Mm,
then, reading the room and making myself small.
mm,
But like I said, and so I learned, I carried those skills through. It from childhood into adulthood into workplaces. It was something that I was naturally hypervigilant.
mm,
And that I think one of the biggest tolls it had on me personally was that constant hypervigilant. Like
mm,
I suffered from anxiety for a lot of my life. I have food intolerances for most of my life. I think we don't acknowledge ourselves for the physical symptoms we often go through when we're in those stressful environments, because it becomes normalized. I still have a heightened nervous system and I still get dizzy spells if I go into fight or flight mode for
yep,
simple things, we all do. But then I suddenly get dizzy spells because still physically compromised to a certain extent. Yeah.
mm. And it's really that protective mechanism, right? It's what our body does to protect us, or what we need to do, that kind of looking around the room and saying, right, is it safe for me to be me today, or do
Yeah.
different version of me. And as you were talking, it just took me back to different experiences that I have had as well. And one thing that I found really helped with some of that fight or flight, because I used to get this massive anxiety rash as soon as I was, triggered by something. And one thing that really helped was tapping for me, that emotional freedom technique. It really helped
Mm,
release that. So
yeah.
yeah, it's different for everyone, of course, but yeah, I think a lot of listeners will feel the same.
I've ac- I've actually, sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, I find in this apartment, I've lived here for a decade now, we have a pool downstairs. And one of the things I discovered really worked for me was putting some earphones in, putting either some music or a podcast or an audio book
Mm.
on my phone and walking in the water, just walking.
Yep.
But because I was focused on what I was listening to, my brain wasn't going.
Yes.
And I was calm in the water and I was actually really enjoying listening to what I was listening to.
Yeah.
And I find it really made a difference to me to calm my nervous system down. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that too. Great tip. Really great.
Yeah. Mm.
Now, a lot of workplaces still operate in that command and control model. Can you tell us what are the hidden costs of an approach like that?
Can I give you a really good example?
Please. Yes.
Yes. So I worked with an executive whose her go-to was, and I observed this, she was my peer, her go-to was, I'm an exec and you need to do as I say. So she had a team of really good subject matter experts, very technically experienced in their field. But her stance was, no, we do it this way because I'm exec and you have to do as I say. So when they asked for context, like, well, give us some ideas so we can work with you, they were labelled as change resistant. And when I asked her further contextual questions, she thought they were challenging her authority.
Yeah.
So she had to control, and she had to command, she had to control the environment. So they disengaged
Yep.
and they became stressed.
Mm.
And there was a 50% turnover in staff in that team. No, that team actually met their targets. They slightly underperformed in their targets. And the executive at the time was lauded. Oh, well done, you almost made it. But what was never examined was she made it at a cost of what? Because she provided the how, but she provided the why. If she provided the why
Mm.
and worked with her team, who was subject matter experts on the how, they may have doubled that target. We'll never know because it was never explored. The fact that she almost met the target by disenfranchising her entire team was never explored. And that's the cost of command and control leadership. We don't know what could have been.
Yeah.
If they had all worked together as a team and collaborated in a nice, safe, open space to for purpose, not for ego, just where would they have got to?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know. And I like to use that example because I think it is so um it's so important that that is command, that is control.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might get the outcome, but what have you cost?
Mm.
Where's the innovation? Where's the experimentation? Where's the growth? Yeah.
And it's something I think everyone would have experienced. And it's something that almost could go under the radar because it's fairly normal in the workplace to sometimes get defensive instead of be collaborative and
Yeah.
sometimes take things the wrong way, whether it's because of a tone of voice or whether it's because of a perception of, feeling attacked instead of just genuine questions.
Yeah.
But what does it actually look like to lead with heart?
Well, I think using that example, moving on from that example, I think you can use the word courage.
Yeah.
But what I reflecting back on what I observed from that leader and that team was her
Yeah.
fear of being surrounded by people who were smart, just more knowledgeable about the subject matter and fear. So I think if you take that from a courage perspective and you have the courage to go, wow, I'm surrounded by these really smart people who really know what they're doing
Yep.
and have the courage to go, okay, team, let's go. What are we doing together? Let's experiment, let's learn, let's test. I think that is one aspect of it. But in my book I've just written, I have five key elements, not four, I have five: respect, trust, transparency, vulnerability, and genuineness. And
Mhm.
I think those five built on support and service and in an environment of emotional intelligence and psychological safety has what I've said takes to be a heart-centered leader.
Yeah.
Trust your people.
Yeah.
Be open about what you want. Be vulnerable to say, hey, I'm having a bad day.
Yeah. We're
Guys,
all, we're all
I'm
human.
I'm moving your one-on-ones till tomorrow because you really don't want to talk to me today. I respect you as fellow individuals and I can't bring this to work today. So I'm going to move you till tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just be human. It looks like being a human being and being I think respect is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Respect other people's time,
Mhm.
not your positional power, not your ego, their time, their humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just leading on from that, what does a fear-free workplace look like in practice?
I like to think in a fear-free workplace, you can bring your whole self to work. Warts and all. Yes, we all have boundaries. We all have to have professional boundaries. You don't, but you can bring your whole self to work. You can go, yeah, I'm having a bad day, or I've had this great idea.
Mm.
I got to a place with the team I took over. I took on a team that had been in a command and control environment. And
Yeah.
when they first started working for me, they wouldn't think for themselves. They from fear,
Yeah.
they wanted, guidance. And I had to turn them around and go, you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they got to a place where they'd go, Jane, I actually don't think that you're quite right there. How about we look at this or we look at a different process? And I would go, okay, talk me through it.
Yeah.
To me, that's a fear-free workplace. They
Yeah.
didn't have fear any consequences.
Yes.
They came to me with facts, data, a suggestion, and said, "Can we work through it?" What a great place to be in if we could all work like that. Yeah,
And as you said earlier, working to our strengths, right?
yeah,
Uh, Again, another example came to mind because I had a very similar experience to you. I came into a role where same thing, someone with the command and control was leading or loose terms leading. And there were a lot of people trying to jump ship because they just wanted to be able to do the job that they were doing. And
mm,
it was a very toxic workplace. And I came on board and said, hey, I see you're working in another team right now. Is that where you want to be? What do you love doing? How can I help you get there? If it's not with this team, how can we work together to get there? And they just looked at me and went, I've never been asked this question.
mm,
And that is really sad because if you can understand subject matter experts and help them be better, then everyone wins, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like to, with all my one-on-ones, I always like to end them with the question, what do you need from me to help you keep being successful?
Yes.
And when I started asking that question, the reaction was, oh, and then it became normal. Well,
Yes.
actually, yeah. And I think that's a gift of service to your team. Yeah.
And that's really a leader's role, right? How can
Mhm.
I help you be better? How can I help you do better? How can I remove the barriers, remove the roadblocks so that you
Mm.
can focus on the job that you've got to do and I focus on
The
finding
roadblocks. Yeah.
and all of that other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what about people who are recovering from toxic leadership? What helped you shift from that survival mode into empowered leadership?
That's that's the tough road. I mean, I will be honest and say I was at rock bottom. I was at a place where I actually rang Lifeline
Yep.
to get some help because I didn't know where to go from there. And then I started doing things slowly. You know, after that conversation, I started doing things slowly. I took some time out. I went on a small holiday, and then I got some therapy and started learning lots of little things. One of the biggest changes for me was that therapist labeled it as abuse, and no one had ever used the word abuse to me before. Abuse as a child, abuse in the workplace. And that was an eye open for me. I started to see patterns. I started to see patterns through my life. I started to see patterns within the workplace. And I started changing just small things to break the pattern,
Mhm.
like going for the walks, spending more time with family, taking the time to self-care and not being too hard on myself. I think that was the biggest learning for me was rather than going and beating myself up after work, what have I said? What did I say? Why did I say that in my meeting? Gosh, was my hair out of place? I shouldn't have worn those earrings. You know, I started not doing that just, and it was a very mindful. I had to teach myself to go, let it go, let it go. You can't undo it now. Go sit, play with your cat. And it was bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. It was a very slow purpose. But then, you know, the more you do it, the better I got at it.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing was definitely self-care.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's often the first thing to go when we're stressed or overwhelmed or not well.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, the first thing people say to you is meditate. And I go, yeah, I used to meditate every day. That's the first thing I stopped finding time for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes into that survival mode again, right? Like we
Yeah.
just need to get through the day. And we don't realize that self-care will help us do that much better. So yeah, thank you for the
And
tip. Oh, sorry.
oh, sorry, someone said to me, and this was a really good tip, doesn't matter if it's only 5 or 10 minutes to start with, because I would go down to the pool to walk and I'd then start having panic attacks. I should be at work, I should be at work, I should be at work. What else should I be doing? So I might have only done it for 15 minutes to start with. And then slowly I started giving myself permission
Yeah.
to take the time to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need permission to look after ourselves because if we don't, who will?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. But having a good therapist also helped.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And good girlfriends that you don't work with.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That community, that network, that support, yeah, is so
Mm.
powerful as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's so easy to get caught up when you're talking to people who you work with to get into the work talk.
Yes.
Whereas when you go out with girlfriends you don't work with or that aren't even in the same industry, it's easier to go, I don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
How's the cat?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So, what's one mindset shift or a step that you'd like listeners to take away from all of this?
I think one of the things I really wanted to achieve through my book and through talking to people is to break the loneliness. One of the things that I hadn't mentioned earlier in your questions was one of the personal tolls was the loneliness. It's very lonely when you're bullied because you don't know who to talk to. You don't know, people can be judgmental. You don't want people to say it's your fault. It can be very lonely. And I think one of the things it would be nice for a mindset shift for people to realize is you're not on your own. You may feel lonely, but this is happening worldwide.
Yeah.
It really is. Toxic leadership, narcissistic leadership, bullying is happening worldwide. And it's actually not you. You're not on your own. Broken people are in power. Broken systems are around us. And we need to start having these conversations to start healing a system. But you're not alone. I think I think that's really important. I wish someone had said to me in years gone by, you're not alone. Yeah.
I love that. And it's so true and such great advice. And I really want to say a huge thank you for the chat today. Do you have a copy of your book that you can share there? And what's the best way for people to connect with you or to get the book? Love it.
Well, you can get it through Amazon.
Mhm.
So if you go into Amazon and look up The Heart-Centered Leader by Jane Phipps, put in my name
Yeah.
because there's a couple of Heart-Centered Leader books available.
Yeah.
So if you put in my name and that should come up. And also, Nicole, after this, I'll share my website address with you if you want to share it with your listeners.
Yes, no problem. And I can put that in the show notes so that people can access that easily. But again, thank you so much for your time and effort to create and to write a book. I know how huge that is. And I cannot wait to get a copy myself. If there's any way I can get a signed copy,
Oh, absolutely.
myself a signed copy of it. But again, thank you so much for the insights. And for listeners out there, if you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe and share it. We'll see you next time on Under the Rug at Work, where we continue to shine light on issues that are too often overlooked.